Welcome to Care Sandwich, the podcast where we dive into the success journeys of law firm owners across the country. I'm Margarita Everline, your host and the founder of Marketing Boss, a fractional chief marketing officer firm for law firms. On this show, we'll explore the challenges, strategies, and victories that have shaped law firms and how they wrap every interaction with care. Because we believe that caring isn't just a value, it's a strategy for success. So grab your favorite sandwich, sit back, and let's dig into a conversation filled with insight, inspiration, and of course, a lot of care. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Care Sandwich. I am so excited to introduce you to an attorney who is way busier than the rest of us because he's got so much going on. He's got a huge firm making lots of changes, and he's been in the business for a really long time. And he's going to give us some of his best tips today as a law firm owner as far as how to do it right and still care for your clients in the process. So Chuck, tell us about yourself and your law firm and how'd you end up being a law firm owner or a lawyer? Tell us your story.
Yeah. So probably from a really young age, I said that I was going to be a lawyer, and it was my dream to do that. Mainly sitting at home listening to my dad. My dad sold insurance for a number of years, went to law school at night in his upper 20s, and decided that he didn't like how insurance companies dealt with people, so he wanted to be a lawyer, make changes. So sitting at home listening to the stories, sometimes following him to the office. And so I just really had that real passion. I kind of felt towards the end that I was supposed to be a minister and actually dedicated my life to the ministry. And about 6 months later, the only desire I had was to be a lawyer. And so I went to law school with the whole idea of being a lawyer, not getting married until I was out of law school. Fortunately, met my wife towards the end of our freshman year. We got married at the end of our junior year. So I went to law school at night, worked full time. She worked full time, a couple of jobs, so that we didn't have much debt when I got out of law school. Started out the DA's office. That's where I was working full time. Probably tried 20 jury trials and probably 35 non-jury trials before I got out of law school. My first felony case was a murder case as an assistant. Well, actually, I was waiting on bar results, or I was waiting to get sworn in. I got to try a death case, not a death penalty case, a murder case. Only case I lost in the DA's office. So ended up joining my dad, who is a former U.S. attorney, and opened up an office in Tulsa. I grew up moving a lot, ended up living in a small town out on a farm of about 3,500 people. Not the best education, but a good education.
It sounds like a wonderful life education. I mean, your story of watching your father and seeing, maybe even hearing his narrative of the insurance companies, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a great way to grow up if you want to do what I get the pleasure of doing every day. So, came to work for my dad. I also served as the DA of Tulsa County, appointed by the governor, then came back to practice with my dad. My dad retired. Well, lawyers don't ever retire, by the way. But he's cut way back, still comes to the office a couple times a week, but he kind of handed the reins over to me about 12, 14 years ago, and I've been running the firm since then.
Wow. And I mean, if I might ask, what are some of the challenges of working with your father? Like, if you could share, like, that's got to be, I bet there's a lot of wisdom in there. Because I mean.
Yeah. So my brother's an attorney too, and he could only stand 2 years of being here. Yeah. My dad's parents, my mom's parents were sharecrop farmers, third grade educations, and my dad had a sister, my mom a brother, and all four went to college. And my dad and my uncle both went to law school, became lawyers.
Wow.
So from farmers to lawyers in one generation. So we have 5 lawyers in our family. One's passed away. So 5 lawyers out of 5 boys and two fathers. So
I would imagine that it's an advantage to have that, I'm going to call it legacy in your family, where you truly care about helping others and achieving justice, not from this like lofty place of, oh, things should be this way. But it sounds like, your father and you vicariously and your family probably like lived the downside of the insurance system and what it's like to be an injured person and be vulnerable. So talk to us about that. What are some of the conversations that maybe specifically inspired you, either as a child or even going through to law school? I'm sure when you were in law school, there were other areas of the law that maybe, were presented as an option. Like, why did you decide to just completely stick to this? Like, what really moved you personally?
Well, in law school, I went to night school, so most of the students were quite older than me, and they were all wanting to get into business, somehow move up in the companies they were in. So they're all trying to talk me out of being a personal injury lawyer. And I'm like, no, that's what I'm going to do. And so, the day, though, that my dad said, okay, son, you've got what it takes, was not what a typical time would be you would want. So I remember I just joined Dad. My office was the conference room because they didn't have any more offices. And so I had my stuff in boxes. I'd move them in, move them out. Yeah, fortunately not. I graduated past there. And Dad wanted me to sit down on a potential case. And the lady came in. She and her husband were estranged, and they lived in Arkansas. She didn't know where her son was. He was 4. And so she wanted to hire us to sue her husband to get custody of the child. Well, 1, it was in Arkansas, and we're in Oklahoma. And 2, we don't do that kind of work. But the biggest problem was she didn't know where they were located. And so Dad said, you really need to find an investigator, gave her some lawyers in Arkansas, and she left. And when she left, I asked Dad, I said, hey, how much do investigators cost? And Dad was paying me $24,000 a year. I took a $4,000 pay cut from the DA's office to here. And he said, why? And I said, because she didn't find her kids. She can't do anything about it. I was wanting to call her and, maybe offer her some money so she could find an investigator.
Wow.
And Dad said, son, when you lose that heart for people, find something else to do.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it stuck with me. So even today, I want to help people. I don't even know how much money is in my checking account. And I know people would say, what? I don't know how much is in my savings account. I'm actually not a signer on any account that my wife and I have. I get none of the reports. She takes care of every bit of it. The only reason I know what my salary is because one of the partners, we needed to up his, and so we needed to know what mine was in order to determine what to up his to. Outside of that, I didn't even know what that was.
Wow.
And it's not that we make a lot of money. There have been years that
I get it.
We went well in the hole, but it's never been about the money. I don't sit there when I get an offer and say, okay, what's 33 1/3%? I couldn't tell you. I mean, I'm great at math, but I don't sit there and try to figure it out.
I totally get it, and I don't know if this is a sign for me or you're enabling me or something, but I had a conversation with my financial advisor this morning, and she gave me a little tough love, and she's like, Margarita, you got to worry more about, your finances and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but if I'm doing good work, it's supposed to all work out. Like, that's literally what you just said, and you're somebody that I could look up to. So I'm going to tell her, hey, I'm not the only one. And I was like, it's not that I don't care. It's just I get excited about the work. So I can relate. I can totally relate to what you said. And it's very rare with personal injury attorneys because, and I don't mean this in a judgmental way. I just observe, but a lot of folks that I come across when I go to conferences to meet attorneys, and people refer me to attorneys, I can't count how many times I've talked to a immigration or family or whatever, and they're like, I'm thinking about going into personal injury because I want more money. And I'm like,
yep.
Oh, you want a Cybertruck? Okay. And it's just, I don't judge it. Like, I mean, I get it, but I definitely do think it's super special you sharing your story about really the DNA of somebody that defends those vulnerable people, I think it does give you an advantage, I bet, when it comes to how much you're going to fight, how hard you're going to fight. One of my clients that I've been working with for, I can't even count how many years, I still remember, he does workers' comp as well, but it's kind of similar. And I still remember him, venting one day, in his office, and he's like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I've got this guy and I know his case is worth a lot more. And he's just worried about giving his kids Christmas. And I'm like, I'm really trying here. And he's like, and a part of me wants to just be like, okay, but and he's like, and I'd love the money too. He's like, but I've got to argue with him for his own sake, and I've got to put his needs before mine. And, he's definitely a person of faith as well, and his whole thing was like, I'm, accountable up there, right? Like, it's not just about this and about the transaction. So, your thought, your style really reminds me a lot of this friend and client of mine. So what is it that motivates you now after all of this that you've lived, after the genesis and the family, history and all? What is it that motivates you now? Because I can imagine, I'm at a point in my career, where like there are some days where I'm just like, I just don't have the energy, like, what is it that keeps you going at this phase in your career where if you've already accomplished so much and you're already established, you've helped so many people, and it might be tempting, to say, you know what, like, I'm going to start exiting. I'm going to, start moving on and doing something else, or, taking more time to do nothing. What is it that motivates you to keep going?
I love the job. 15 years ago, we decided that we were going to start playing golf on Friday afternoons, at least every other Friday.
Yeah.
And so we all joined a country club, and we decided, you know what, that's not going to go over well with the staff members, so we gave staff every other Friday afternoon off. So every staff member, they rotate, and they get that off. In 15 years, we have played golf on one Friday afternoon. It's all consuming. It's difficult. I remember my wife would nudge me on vacations because by the fourth or fifth day, I'm ready to go home and work. I love being with my family. We have a wonderful family. We spend a lot of time together. We enjoy each other. We've even gotten past the point where the sons pick on each other. It's incredible. And now it's all in good fun, not competition. So but so I love that. Someone said, "Do you have any hobbies?" I said, "Yeah, playing golf with my kids," because I enjoy golf, but I love golf when I get to play it with them. So they're not going anywhere. We always laughed about, we were calling my dad Bernie for Weekends at Bernie, which I've never seen the movie, but a couple of my partners were explaining it to me. And we said, we'll find your dad in the cigar room at the office. Yeah. You know what? They will find me in the cigar room at the office unless, I told my son, who's an associate, one day you're going to be one of the partners, and when you are, you're the one that gets to decide when I go out to the pasture. But I still get a key and I still have an office because I'll still be here even when they fire me. So I love helping people. I really do. When people come to talk to lawyers, they don't have an option because most people don't like lawyers. So they look at it and go, I don't have a good option, but it's the best I've got. And I get the opportunity to help them with some alternatives to whatever their challenges are. And 70% of the time, it's not even a case that falls within our practice area. But I can point them in a direction so that they can find the solution for them to move forward in life. No one ever says we're attorneys. They all say we're attorneys. We're really counselors. We're there to provide people assistance with whatever they're dealing with, if we can help them. And I do that. I've met with men the last 30 years. I meet with men that are going through challenges in their life, either with their spouse, their kids. typically it's a challenge that are going on for themselves that's causing challenges with their spouse or their kids. But I get to have those conversations with people. And, so this isn't an 8-to-5 job. It's never been. And on top of that, I get to do the same thing in other avenues of life. And it's a blessing. It really is.
So Chuck, it sounds to me like you have found a really nice way to balance who you are as a person with who you are as an attorney. And I think that that's beautiful. I often meet attorneys or law firm owners that are very, I'm going to say detached emotionally from their clients. And I respect it because I see that they're doing it as a defense mechanism where, and they'll say things like, well, the moment that I get emotionally involved, it's exhausting for me. It sounds to me like you have found a way to do it in a way that's not like negative, if I could use that word, or consuming. Walk us through that. Like, how do you draw that line between I care and I'm involved, but I'm not taking it home. I'm not taking the stress, or maybe you do a little bit. I don't know, but walk us through that.
Yeah. So I was on an airplane recently on a case that I hadn't worked on, and I was having to read the depositions to get ready for, they were deposing one of our experts, and I was reading the client's deposition, and I was about halfway through it, and the flight attendant kind of nudged me and said, "Sir, are you okay?" And I look up at her with tears streaming down my face going, "Yeah, I'm okay." A sad story. And she's like, "What, are you a counselor?" And I go, "Yes." And she's like, "Okay, I got to go help some people. I'll come back and talk." It can be very emotional, but for some reason, I'm really good at putting things in a box. And so when I finish that, I can put it in the box. Now, when I open the box back up, those emotions come right back. But I can put it in a box. This case is in a box. This case is in a box. Parts of my life are in a box. So if I'm having a really, really challenging day, when we talked last week, I think it was last week. Okay. We live on a farm. 80% of our farm burned that weekend. So I don't know if you saw a difference in the way I behaved, but probably not, because that goes in a box. And when I need to deal with that box, I can open it back up and deal with it. And I don't know if it's my personality or it's just my mechanism that I use to deal with stress. But it works for me. I can only do for somebody at that moment what I can do for them. Once I'm away from that situation, there's nothing I can do for them.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the conversation and your sandwich as much as we are. I want to take a moment to share a few words about our sponsor, Marketing Boss. If you're a law firm owner looking to supercharge your growth, our team at Marketing Boss is here to help. We've got over a decade of experience and a proven track record, and we specialize in growing law firms like yours with data-driven marketing leadership. So if you own a law firm and you're ready to get a predictable, steady flow of cases from your marketing, let's connect at marketing-boss.com.
I hear you. I can relate. I describe it as faith that things will work out. In my life, I've been through so many things, and I've already experienced so many miracles that sometimes I take for granted that the things that stress other people out, I'm able to put them down, because I know that if I did what I could in that moment, that was all I needed to do. And then just, I have to just trust that it'll work out. But I can relate a lot to what you said. I think that so many times when we don't learn how to do that, we can get swayed all over the place. I've got 5 little boys, and they're the ones that really taught me how to have that kind of faith, that kind of like steady, like patience, where it's like, I'm not letting them rule with their chaos, but I'm able to stay centered, and then that helps them align and get centered right back with me versus me getting like sucked in. I joke, I have a really lovely client that I work with, and he's wonderful, but I've had people say, how can you work with that guy? And I'm like, well, I have 5 boys already. So, like similar skills. Like, so, like sometimes he just needs a little reassurance. It's going to be okay. But anyway, I love this. I could talk to you for forever, but for those of you that are never heard, or for those in the audience that have never heard of your firm, like walk us through what sort of practice areas do you handle? Like how can they get a hold of you to refer you cases or maybe even to be a client?
Yeah, sure. It's Richardson Boudreaux in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We handle cases actually all over the country. I was counting the other day. I think I've tried cases in 11 different states. So that's where we're located. Our phone number is 918-888-8000. And I only can remember 5 phone numbers. So that's one of them. That's how easy it is.
And 911.
And our website's rrbok.com, Richardson Boudreaux, OK for Oklahoma. So rrbok.com. We primarily handle personal injury cases. So anything from a car wreck to nursing home abuse, neglect, medical malpractice, a few products liability cases. We've, in the last 10 years, started handling civil rights cases.
Oh, wow.
So that's been interesting, especially after being a former district attorney and now looking at the jail and prison systems and trying to find ways to help people that have been injured or killed while they were in prison. So that's been an interesting area for us to get involved in. Actually, our oldest son is an associate here, and he's really interested in those cases. So it's something that he and I are practicing together. Practicing means we're always learning. So those are the type of cases. We work with other lawyers. There's lawyers in Missouri that we work with them a lot, or they refer us cases. There's a couple law firms in Texas that anytime they have a case up here, we're involved with them. Actually, there's 2 lawyers in Missouri that do that with us. So we've got lawyers in other states that every once in a while we'll get cases from. And something that any plaintiff lawyer that's out there, or criminal defense lawyer, Jerry Spence started a trial college called Jerry Spence Method, and I will tell you it's a 3-week course up in Wyoming that changed my life as a lawyer, as a husband, as a father, as a friend. And any lawyer that thinks I have figured this out, or I am burned out, I don't ever want to do this type of stuff again, it is a great resource and option. Actually, our son's going to go this next year. My dad went in 2000. My dad is an extremely successful attorney. His biggest verdict was $58 million libel slander suit back in the 80s. And he's just absolutely incredible as a trial lawyer. He went. He always was looking for ways to grow emotionally and in his practice. He came back, gave me the first hug he ever gave me, and told me I was going. And so I went the next year. And it really was that effect in my life and what it did for me. So strongly recommend it for anybody. Jerry Spence Trial Method, and it is excellent. And
I'm sure there's a lot there, but just briefly, what's the methodology or what's the approach? Is it mindset? Is it a way of doing research? What do they cover in the method, in the training?
So the first week is getting back in touch with who you are. As we become calloused, as we get beat up on, yelled at, run over, and it really helps us confront those challenges in our lives that gets us back in touch with who we are.
That's beautiful.
And I hadn't lost a lot of that. I still had a lot of that. Probably lived a pretty protected life. But there were guys there, guys and girls. I use guys. There's guys there that they were ready. Over half the class were ready to quit practicing law. And after the first week, that passion started coming back. Maybe not for the practice of law, but for life and for others. And all of a sudden, you got to see that welling back up in them. And then they start teaching you the methods that Jerry Spence teaches on how to try a case, put a case together, and how to try it, which was extremely consistent with the way my dad does it. And Dad has started out cassette tapes and now CDs.
Yeah.
Except Jerry Spence's fit better with who I am. So there's about a 10% difference that I learned at the Spence College that helped me be the lawyer that I am. 90% of it's exactly what Dad does, but 5%, 10% of it was different for me. And it was realizing who I was.
Yeah, wow, that's impactful because I think a lot of people don't talk enough about how stressful it really is to be an attorney. And I know that, we joke about it and make a little sarcastic, like my whole thing is, like with a name like Margarita, I was destined to work with lawyers because what attorney doesn't love a good margarita, right? So ha ha ha. But I'm like, a lot of attorneys like drink because they're stressed, and especially law firm owners and the pressure. And it's almost like your legal brain, this has been my observation as a marketer, because, we have marketing discussions. It's like your legal brain is terrified of making a mistake. But then in order to like market and advertise, you got to go into like gray areas and put yourself out there and be vulnerable and be exposed and be judged and like be yourself. And it can be scary. Like I have a lot of law firm owners where they don't want to make videos. They don't want to put, because they like overanalyze everything, but that's kind of like what makes them really good attorneys. But then it's like, I almost feel like they're not comfortable in their own skin sometimes. And so I love what you said about how, there's a program out there that's helping you connect with who you really are, because from a marketing perspective, when I come across a law firm owner that knows who they are, I work with these guys and they're like, we just want catastrophic cases. One of them's a minister, and they're both like ex-law enforcement officers, and they're very niche, like, homegrown, and like they know who they are. They know that's what they want, and they don't get swayed by like all the fluff. And they have managed expectations, right? Because they know they're not trying to get 50 soft tissue cases or whatever, like per month or whatever the number is for, the average firm that gets those types of cases. They know they just want the once in a lifetime, or the once in a while, catastrophic case. And they're clear on that. Then they can be steady and they can get to that predictable place. And then marketing wise, their messaging is consistent, and I think that's just so valuable. Like I see it from a marketing perspective, but I can also see it just from a quality of life perspective, like when you know who you are, what you're about, and you're mission driven, it's easier to withstand all the ebbs and, and like, I don't know if you know this, but right now in Georgia, there's like a huge like tort reform bill that just passed, which is going to make it harder to really monetize cases, personal injury cases. And like, I've heard people like, I'm going to start doing workers' comp tomorrow. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, we're just jumping ship, like, because of a bill, like, let's think about it for a minute. Like, anyway, What advice would you give to somebody that is thinking about going into the practice areas that you handle and wondering, is this really for me? Like, what questions should they ask themselves?
Yeah, there's two sides to the coin. Mm-hmm. If you're someone that can't control your giving, it may not be the right profession for you, because you can give so much of yourself, you burn out, you're broke. So you have to be willing to make the tough calls. We actually have an associate right now that the cases stay in his office longer than anybody else's, because every time he talks to the client and says this is their final offer, he let me call and see if I can get a little bit more. And that little bit more doesn't raise the amount, it just raises the time before the clients get the money. So he really has an incredible heart. We just have to get him to build some boundaries that he can live within, because he's wonderful and he does a great job. So you got to be careful, because if you get on that side and you're on your own and no one's helping you with boundaries, it's tough. The second thing is, the other thing is you got to find balance. The boys and I try to play golf every Saturday. If we don't get to them, we play after church on Sunday. And two of them are married, got two grandsons. We all get to dinner on Friday evenings to spend time together. We still travel together. They have their friends they travel with. My wife and I have ours, but we always do 1 or 2 trips together. We spend Christmas together. So we have a balance there where we get to connect with the people we love the most. And don't lose yourself. Remember who you are. Stay true to yourself. Sometimes it means maybe you really didn't know yourself, and there's some things you need to look at again and say, is that really who I am? But find out who you are and find a great paralegal. Then you're set.
And treat them well, right? Get them coffee.
Absolutely. Whatever they want. So, yeah, it's you can do this, make a great living at it, and walk away from it going, yeah, it filled my bank account, and now I'm retired, and that's fine. That's where some people are, and that's perfect. But I remember being in a seminar, and they were saying, you need to close this many cases for this much money. You need to push the staff to close those cases, and it was a 2.5 day seminar, and I was in there for an hour out of the whole thing. I sat outside and smoked a cigar the rest of the time. Not one cigar, some cigars, because that's not who I am. And it's not. He may have had some very valuable information, but I wasn't going to start with the premise that my clients are now a number, whatever that number is that I can put in my pocket, because that's not serving them.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Like I hire consultants and things like that, and I've had folks tell me, oh, your business would be more scalable if you just created a package that you can replicate. And I was like, but my whole thing is everybody's got like a different brand opportunity, and I've got to customize each of these things. Yeah, but you make more money the other way. And I'm like, no thanks.
Right.
I can't do it any other way. I just can't.
You can only spend so much, right?
Yeah. And I don't know. I've been doing marketing for so long, and I've seen so much. And, similar to you, like I'm driven, by people and very inspired by my dad. Like my dad was not a professional by any means. My dad worked construction, and, very humble, immigrated from Mexico. And I learned so much. My work ethic really comes from him. Like my family teases me and they call me Little Francisco because I don't ever stay still. I'm hardly ever idle. Like I'm always busy doing something, whether it's pulling weeds in the yard or like working on the computer. And what I learned from him was you always want to offer value, and you want to do what you do for people, not just for the business. When I was a little girl, and this was super, and I've written about it, but it really marked me. My dad was working at a factory, and I think it was like oranges or something like that. And his boss at the time told him, hey, the company's going to fall apart, or relocate, excuse me. They're going to take it apart and relocate it. You can relocate. And my dad was like, oh, are you relocating? And he's like, no, I'm going to stay. And he's like, well, then I'm not going. And so like my dad was so loyal, and it's kind of a long story, but basically by the end of this man's life, my dad was his only visitor, like at the nursing home. Like my dad was that committed to this person because they had such a close relationship. And career wise, we always had what we needed. My dad ended up getting a job, somewhere else and all that. But, one thing that I learned from my dad was at the end of the day, like it's the relationships that we build along the way that matter. Like all the other stuff takes care of itself. And, we treat people right and, value people and what they give to us in the moment, and the rest just works itself out. And that's definitely something that's a part of my professional, and my lifestyle and my company culture. So I really respect what you said about what, the DNA that you got from your dad when it came to taking care of people. Like I can relate. It's almost like even if they pay you, like you just can't do it another way. Like, I don't know about you, but like for me, it's like, I just can't not do it this way. Like, so it's such a beautiful legacy. So kudos to your dad for leading by example. I think so many times we talk and we preach and we try to get people to do things and it doesn't work. At the end of the day, what really moves people is the behavior that they see us actually live out, and the tough decisions that we make in the moment are what define us. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I have one more question to ask you before I let you go, because I already went way over my 15-minute deadline that I had for this interview. What is, because it's Care Sandwich Podcast, what is your favorite sandwich?
Oh.
It always gets people.
I'm not a big sandwich guy, and I've gone to a couple sandwich places lately that caused me to go home, and I've made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches probably 6 times in the last 2 weeks.
Interesting.
So it's got to be my favorite.
Interesting. Okay. Pretty simple, pretty easy.
Yeah.
You can get it anywhere. Amazing. Yeah. Well, Chuck, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today's program?
Building on what you just shared, it's show me, don't tell me.
Preach. Yes.
Yep. So keep that in mind anytime you're talking to anybody. If you show them you care, they'll follow you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you all so much for watching. Check out our episode of Care Sandwich featuring Chuck on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Care Sandwich. Remember, the way we care for our clients, our teams, and ourselves can make all the difference in our success. Until next time, keep caring, keep growing, and I'll see you on the next episode of Care Sandwich.